Sup bitches? I'm reliably informed that I'm terrible at pimping my stuff. So here I am, pimping my stuff in what's hopefully an amusing way. If you want to interact with me and follow me, you can find me on Twitter at Grimosaur and at Mort_post for official announcements. Star Wars fans have been putting up with a lot of shit for quite a while now. I guess going back to the prequels, really. We all know how those went across to a lot of people, but the more recent trilogy seems to have made the prequels look great by comparison. But one of the most facile and stupid accusations towards fans that I've seen is that it's film about space wizards intended for children. Well, on a surface level, yeah, of course it is, but really good, affecting fiction tends to work on multiple levels. A lot of adults today like kids' cartoons, and the people making the kids' cartoons know this, and they include elements that work on multiple levels, even something kind of suggestive and double entendre quite often. The Simpsons is on later in the day, but you know, it often surfs that line, what with their Snuggle Dungeons and whatever else, and cartoons like Gravity Falls and so on often include references and things that little kids aren't going to get, but older kids and adults are going to get. So it's just such a stupid complaint, particularly when it's coming from people who quite often use the Harry Potter franchise as a kind of touchstone for their politics and so on. Well, until she came out as a TERF, of course, but that's by the by. But I think this is not only unfair to Star Wars fans, I think it's also unfair to George Lucas, and I know it's unfashionable to be sympathetic towards George Lucas, but nonetheless, if you look at Star Wars, if you look at a great deal of George Lucas's work over the years, whether directing or advising or whatever, anything that he's been involved in, a huge amount of it is based in the same sort of territory. He is a man who is or was extremely media literate and reverential of old film serials, of international cinema before that was really a thing outside of a very sort of geeky interest. And he incorporated all of these elements, things from spaghetti westerns, things from Japanese cinema, things from old radio serials, film serials like Flash Gordon or King of the Rocket Men, or all of these other things. They're all influences, they're all in there in Star Wars. And as these things have receded into history, they've gained a certain academic interest, I suppose. People are interested in what was done in that early cinema. The people who really trod new ground. And Lucas takes these influences, puts them together, extracts what's good, mixes it up, and puts it out. And his biggest triumph, I would say, is probably Star Wars. Then Indiana Jones is basically an old 1930s film serial updated as well. And that's much more of a direct translation. But Star Wars brings all of these elements together, mixes them up, and produces something new, something syncretic, something that still stands up today, in part because it is tapping into all of those old tropes and that cultural memory and taking advantage of the work of others in a non-exploitative way, but just to pick out the things that worked and to mix them together into this wonderful melange. And if you don't understand that, if you don't see that, if you don't see the influence of Kurosawa or World War II films about bombing raids or fighter dogfights or whatever else, if you don't see the influence of spaghetti westerns in that, then you're just a media illiterate. If there's a director working today who is most similar to George Lucas, I would say it would have to be Quentin Tarantino. I'd love to see a Tarantino Star Wars, not a Tarantino Star Trek. I think he would be a much better fit. I'd love to see an R-rated Star Wars film. But he, similar to Lucas, has a reverence for the trash media of his youth, the stuff that's, you know, exciting and interesting academics more and more as time goes on. You know, he wears his influences on his sleeve, whether it's Kung Fu or Grindhouse or Russ Meyer or whoever else. You know, he understands and appreciates the art contextually for what it is, in the same way that George Lucas does. And he's brought what works out of that into his work and then updated it for the modern day, right from Reservoir Dogs through now. And George Lucas is the same, albeit for a more general audience, perhaps. But the influences are there, so you can appreciate it as a kid for the action. As an adult, you can appreciate all the nuance and flavour that lies behind it all. So where did the wheels really come off then? I would say Star Wars, when it was really good. I would say it was a combination of elements. This reverence for the pulps, the serials, the samurai cinema of Japan, all of that, and bringing all of that together. Also pushing technical boundaries. Computer-controlled cameras, taking itself seriously. You know, the effects work, puppetry and so on was all revolutionary at the time. And so you have kind of cutting-edge effects and model work and everything else combining with that, you know, the future, combining with the past, with the reverence for the serials and everything else. With the prequels, I think George got lost in his appreciation of the technical side. And it did still push boundaries. There was still revolutionary computer work going on there with the animations and the CGI and so on. But he lost the plot a bit. There are still some references, 1950s aesthetics, that sort of thing. But a lot of it is gone. It doesn't wear the influences on its sleeve as much as, you know, the first trilogy did. And I think it's the weaker for it. But at least it was still technologically pushing limits. So now we come to the final trilogy. It has no references, it has no inferences, it has, you know, there's no Kurosawa influence here. There's no Kung Fu cinema influence here. There's no Errol Flynn, there's no Dam Busters. It's self-referential rather than referential. And that's where it falls down, I think. I mean, people will argue about wokeness, story, whatever else. It's just, it doesn't have that depth. It isn't sat in popular culture. It isn't steeped in its influences. It doesn't express them. It references itself only. That's where that goes wrong, I think. I think that's where it falls flat. Now, if we compare and contrast that with The Mandalorian, The Mandalorian might not be pushing anything technically. I mean, the big movies, they haven't really done anything revolutionary. It's just a refined process. But The Mandalorian is very much more old school filmmaking, albeit with a bit of CGI. There's a lot of practical effects there. That's good. But where it is going absolutely right, and where it is following the Star Wars formula, is in its influences. It's back to the spaghetti westerns. It's most obviously referencing Lone Wolf and Cub. Yeah, every episode you could say, that's Seven Samurai. That's Yojimbo. That's Wolf and Cub. You know, and it has heist movies in an episode. That's where it works. And so I would argue that the true successor to the Star Wars franchise is The Mandalorian. And if that's any indication of how things are going to go with their TV division, I think that's where Star Wars fans are going to get their itch scratched. It's not just respectful of the fans and respectful of the franchise. It understands what made the franchise great in the beginning, and it pushes those same buttons, mostly very successfully. Zang, said the grinder as it chewed its way through Alice from the crown of her head all the way down to her toes. It ate the lot of her, unfussy, snout to tail, and cleared its plate. It gnashed its way through her dress, her pinafore, her shoes, and her unmentionables. It chewed her hair, devoured her scalp, gobbled up her arms, wolfed down her legs, gorged itself on her torso, noshed on her skin, and gulped her down without so much as a burp to show for it.
It's time for you boys to share my last taste of the true black meat. Flesh of the giant aquatic Brazilian centipede.